Okay, today is November the 13th, 2007. I'm in Bristow, Oklahoma. My name's Tanya Finchum. I'm with the OSU Library's oral history project called Women of the Oklahoma Legislature. And today I'm with Skye McNiel, who was elected to the House of Representatives in 2006.
Yes, ma'am.
So she's new to the area arena, but she'll have lots to tell us today. So thank you for allowing me to come to your home.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's start by having you tell a little bit about your childhood, where you were born, and then we'll work forward.
Okay. I was born right here in Oklahoma. I was born in Sepulveda, Oklahoma, just a little ways away from Bristow. And I was born into a very large family. And my family owns and operates Mid-America Stockyards, which is a livestock auction here in Bristow. When I was born, my great-grandmother and grandparents and my great-aunt and uncle owned the livestock auction. And my great-grandmother passed away about a month ago. And so now within the auction, my grandparents own it. My dad and my brother and my mom, we work there. My dad's two brothers, all their families work there. And so there's about 20 of us as a family unit that have a business that we work together every Saturday. Every other Monday night, we sell horses, and every Saturday we sell cattle. So I was blessed to be born into such an amazing family. They're so supportive. It's a huge family. It's just a fantastic way to grow up. I grew up very rural. My dad is an order buyer. He goes to sale barns and buys cattle, brings them home, and then we ship them out to their new owners. And so I grew up working in that industry, in that field. From the time I could walk, we'd go out and gather cattle on Sunday afternoons, and that would be our fun thing. That's what we would do for fun. And we'd ride horses, and it was just a great way to grow up in rural Oklahoma. And I think my parents instilled in me good work ethics and just a good way of life that I hope to pass down onto my children. And that's what we do for fun, is we take our girls and we go ride horses and we gather cattle and we work, and they go help their dad raise pigs. And it's a lot of fun. And I think the rural way of life that I was born into, I feel very blessed to be born into this life and to have been raised this way. And I'm very thankful to my family, my parents.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have one brother, and he is married, and I have two wonderful little nieces.
Older or younger?
He's older.
He's older.
Yes, and I unfortunately was not taught to do a lot of the girl things. I was raised a lot like a boy, and so I was sent outside to work and to work with animals, to work with cattle, to load the trucks, to drive the trucks, to doctor, to feed, to do all those things. And so cooking is not one of my fortes. And so fortunately, I have an understanding husband who's allowed me to kind of learn some of that. But I was raised just like a boy. I was raised to do that. I could do anything a boy could do, that I could, if I would just put my mind to it, that I could get it done. It didn't matter that I was a girl.
And where did you go to college?
I went to college at Oklahoma State University. And so, yes, I'm an OSU girl, and I had a double major in ag communications and animal science. And I wanted to go and be a lobbyist for the agricultural industry, and, took some different turns in the road, but I ended up, I think, where I needed to be.
Well, what got you interested in the political arena then?
I actually had a really good friend who was quite a few years older than me, but I always admired her. She was just a really classy, neat person, kind-hearted, and I kind of wanted to be a little bit like her. And she went to be a lobbyist in the agricultural industry, and I thought that was just fantastic. She was really making a difference in the way we live and our livelihood, and I thought that was a great thing. And so I kind of wanted to do that, and I took some steps that she took, and one of them was being an agricultural intern for the Ag Committee in the House and the Senate. And so I did that when I think I was a sophomore, junior in college. I took a semester off of college, moved to Oklahoma City, which was quite a move for me, and lived there, went to the Capitol every day, got to go in the meetings, I got to see the things that were going on, I got to be a part of the hustle and bustle up there, and I thought someday I might want to come try this. I tried it a little earlier than I thought I might. I didn't realize I would be trying it at 27 years old, but that's when I started.
Probably one of the younger ones currently in.
I'm one of the youngest females. They say I am the youngest female to be elected. I haven't ever looked that up particularly, but I'm certainly not the youngest that served. There's been some men that have been quite a bit younger.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your campaign. Did you have a manager?
I did. I decided to run when I was about 7 months pregnant with my second daughter, and everyone thought I was a little bit crazy. I had always said I was going to run, but I thought I would run a little bit later in life. But sometimes doors are open and you either have to step through them or watch them close. And I decided that that I was going to try to do it. My mom was a huge support to me, and she was on the campaign trail with me every step of the way. We would oftentimes load up the kids, put them in the back seat, turn on a movie, and we would go door knocking. And my oldest one would get out a lot of times and go with me and go door knocking with me. So that was a family affair again. But I had some amazing people that worked on my campaign, and I had a consultant who helped me out, which was new for me. And they did a lot of things that I didn't understand. It was all new. It was all a learning experience for me to learn how to send out the mail pieces and the photo shoots and the commercials and things. And so it was kind of a different experience, but I had some great people that, when you run a campaign, you really learn who your friends are, because they're going to stick beside you. They're going to be out there knocking doors with you. They're going to be the ones who come and help you put on your fundraisers, and they're going to be the ones who stand beside you, even when some people are standing up against you and saying things that are wrong and negative against you. And so it was really an amazing experience for me, and I have made a lot of great friends from it.
Do you mind saying how much it cost your first campaign?
My first race was a little over $100,000, about 106.
And your opponent was male, female?
My opponent was a female. She was my 7th grade English teacher.
And
it did make it hard. She was a really neat lady, someone I looked up to, someone who I admired in school, still do. We ran a really clean race. We respected each other. We ran on our merits, and I think her race cost a little bit over $40,000. She's a nice lady. We still see each other. Her husband had been a legislator a few years ago, and so it was a great race. But it's hard to run against somebody and especially somebody from the same town. But I just when it was all said and done, I remember praying lots of nights, God, I'm going to just give it my all, and I'm going to do everything I can from down here. And if it's meant to be, then let it be me who's named November the 7th, that I will be the next representative. And if it's not, just give me the satisfaction of knowing I did all I could do, and it just wasn't the will that I'd be up there.
So talk a little bit about election day then.
Yeah, it was a little bit crazy. We continued to knock doors. I really pushed myself, and my family pushed me in a good way to continue and to be sure and get every single vote and let people know what we're out there and what we're about, that we're not just a young single, a young mom. I don't know why I said single. But not just to not let people know that I'm just a young mom who's just out trying to make a point or make a statement, that I'm a person who's out to try to make a better life for herself, her family, her kids, the generations to come, for all of Oklahoma and all of District 29 and rural Oklahoma. And so that's what I did. I continued door knocking that whole day. We knocked up until about 4 o'clock, just making sure people went out and voted. And I'm so happy that I did, because I won by a very small margin. Had I not done that, my margin may have even been smaller, or perhaps I wouldn't have won, but I only won by about 250 votes. But I had a very small watch party, and because I really didn't know who all would come. It was my first time to do this. We're a small town. So I just opened a little bitty building on Main Street. I have a business on Main Street, and the building next to it I owned, and it was empty at the time, and we'd kind of made it our headquarters. So we opened up that building, and it was packed the whole night, and I just couldn't imagine all these people came out to support me. I was overwhelmed by that. I thought, if I win or lose, this is amazing to know that these people thought enough to take their evening, which they could have been a million other places, to come out and watch the results with me. And it was just really humbling to walk into that room and see. And so I would go into the other room and get the results, and we had runners out going all over. I have 7 towns that I cover. Mm-hmm. And so we had to send people all over Creek County to get the results. And so we were just waiting on the calls, and some of them had to go out so far that they didn't have cell phone service. So we would have to wait on them to get back into the town so they could call us. And it was up and down. I would lead for a while, and then I would be behind it for a while, and then I would lead for a while. And it was just the most nervous thing I've ever been through. And then when we found out we had won, we were ahead of the news cast coming out and saying we had already, because all of our people had already gone to the precincts. And so it was just a really serene kind of a moment that what we had been working for literally over a year had already happened. It was just amazing. And I was so emotional. I had said, I'm not going to cry. I'm not a crier. This isn't what I do. But I just couldn't help it. It was amazing. I just was so thankful and blessed that all those people came out to share that moment with me. And I think that was the most exciting part.
Okay, when you go to the Capitol, do you go down Lincoln Boulevard, or do you go a different direction?
I do. I go down Lincoln.
And yeah. What are your thoughts as you go down that road? Toward the dome.
I drive up there every morning. I don't live in the city.
Okay.
During session, I drive back and forth every day and every night, so I can be in with my kids. And the drive up there sometimes gets long, but when I turn on Lincoln and I see the dome and I see the Capitol, I get really excited because I know that what I'm going to go do that day hopefully will make a good difference in somebody's life. And it's just a very humbling experience to drive down that road and to know at the end that there's the Capitol and what hustle and bustle is going on in there and what things are happening inside of there. So amazing. And the amazing people that work there. And it's just kind of an adrenaline rush. The closer you get to the Capitol, the further down Lincoln. I love that drive.
And where's your office in the Capitol?
My office is on the fourth floor, or on the third floor, right below the Speaker's office. And I go up the back steps into the chamber, and I share an office with another freshman member. And he's an amazing help to me. We've had to learn the course with each other. But to actually be in that office is so amazing. From when I was an intern there, to actually have my own office and to be in those halls again, it smells the same, it feels the same, it has the same nostalgia to me. It's amazing that I went from wishing to be there to now I have my own office and my own name on my door, and sometimes I just look at my door and think, this is just amazing, what a dream come true, to see my name on my door as being a state representative. How wonderful is that?
Yeah, and then the swearing-in day.
Yeah, it was a very hectic day and really fast-paced. I had been on the floor before, but never sat at my desk with my name on it, and it was just amazing to sit there. And I had my kids down there with me, and my whole family was lined up, and the people who helped me on my campaign had come, and just an enormous amount of people had come to watch this day, which it was their swearing in too. They had been such a part of it. I always said, we are going to go to the Capitol. It's not just going to be Skye McNiel going to the Capitol. It's going to be a team effort because that's what got me here. And I will never forget, it was never I got me here. It was a team that got me here, and I'll take the whole team with me. And I still communicate with those people every single day. The lady who was my campaign manager, if you will, I talked to her this morning, and we talk constantly about things that are going on. And she has a full-time job and a family. But we still communicate about what's going on, what people are saying. Maybe they don't want to call me, or they're afraid to call me, or have an issue that they think isn't important to me. And so it really keeps me in touch and lets me know what people are talking about, other than the people who just come to me and some of the gossip rumors I hear. It's really important to be in touch with people around the community that you think are involved in different arenas all over my district, to know what's really going on, what the real problems are. But the swearing-in day was just fantastic. It's just a day I'll never forget. And I was so proud to introduce my husband and my parents and my grandparents, and my great-grandma was there to watch me do that. And so it was amazing to have them be a part of that with me.
4 generations? 5?
5 generations. Yes, because I have children, and so they were lucky enough to know their great-great-grandmother. And my oldest one is old enough that she will remember her for the rest of her life. And so it's just been, I just feel so blessed with the family I have.
So if you're driving from here every day, how early do you have to get up and get gone?
It depends on what time I have to be there. I'm an hour and 10 minutes away from my desk. And so it just depends on how early I need to be there. The way they scheduled it this year, some days we don't start session till 1. So, I can get up there mid-morning, spend a little bit of time with my children that morning, and then I'm typically there throughout the late evening. And then some days we have to be there by 8 o'clock. And so I have to leave rather early. And then maybe I might get home a little earlier in some days. Like my Tuesdays last session, I had to be there at 8, and a lot of times I was home. I wasn't here until past 10. So I was gone from 8 to 10 for my kids. From 6:30 to 10, I guess. And so it made for some long days, but then I had some more flexible times that I got to spend the mornings with them, or we'd get out of session early, and I would get to come home and work from my office and at my house and get to have them here with me. So it worked out real nice. There are some long days and there are some short days. You just kind of balance it out. Can
you see yourself doing this 12 years?
I can, if God's willing and my family's willing. I always tell people this is the only job I'm not looking for what's next. I'm not saying, okay, when I leave here, what am I going to do? Or what could be better than this? What would be more exciting than this? What would be more gratifying than this? This is it for me. This is where I feel like I'm supposed to be right now. I feel like I just need to make the most of where I'm at and use what talents and skills that God's given me to make the best out of this job and improve the district that I represent, Improve Oklahoma. That's what I'm supposed to be doing right now.
Are you working on a particular issue at the moment?
I feel like I'm all over the board on issues. I'm really right now involved with some DHS issues, some Department of Human Services. My district is, like we've mentioned, very rural. It covers 7 towns, and it's a district that's very. We have a lot of people who are involved in DHS, whether it's through foster parenting, whether it's through adoption agencies, whether it's through social services. Being on food stamps or being on some of the services like that. So there's a lot of issues that I get called on that deal with DHS. And so I seem to find myself that my district is pushing me in that direction. That's not where I started. That's not an area that I even felt like I knew much about. But I feel like my district is guiding me and telling me that this is where I need to go to best serve them. And so I do pay a lot of attention to DHS and to the human services side of what I'm doing. And I think that we're going to see some changes in DHS, and I'm excited about those. We need to revamp a lot of it. There's some good people up there, and we need to give them the tools to do the best job that they can. And it may take us a couple of years to get that done. It's going to be some statute changes, and it's going to be some procedural changes, and some changes within the structure of DHS. And it's going to take us a while to get there, but we are going to get there. I'm also very passionate about rural Oklahoma. I'm the vice chairman of the Natural Resources Committee, which is a full committee. And so I'm very involved in that, whether it's we're talking about water right issues or water issues in general for people to drink. Because, there's a huge argument now going on between rural Oklahoma and urban Oklahoma. Everybody's pointing fingers. Everybody's saying you rural people by having your hog operations and your cattle operations are polluting our water. And rural people are saying, well, you put so much phosphate and chemicals on your golf courses and your lawns that it's drifting down and getting into our water. So until we decide that we're going to stop pointing fingers and we're just going to fix the problem and we're each going to do our part to fix the problem, rural and urban, until we decide that, we're going to continue to have this issue. But the main goal needs to be providing good water for our children to drink and the future generations to drink, because it is a resource that we have to take care of, and we only have what we have. And we've got to really watch that, because it's not something we can make. Water is so valuable and so precious. But there are lots of issues like that just pertaining to rural Oklahoma and the way that we live. If we don't protect what we have, if we don't protect the rural way of life, we lose a lot of things. We don't only lose a lifestyle, but we lose that this is where our food comes from, and people don't understand that. I've heard it said lots of times, not lots of times, but multiple times. If you want good health care, if you want good schools, if you want good infrastructure, move to urban Oklahoma, move to the city. And I often respond, if you want to eat, move to rural Oklahoma, or at least let us survive. And that's what we have to remember. We have to coexist. We need the cities and we need rural Oklahoma. And that's my job. That's what I feel like I am out there to do, is to make sure that we can coexist and we can realize each other's importance in how Oklahoma is so unique and so wonderful. And I hope my children live in rural Oklahoma. I hope they live right here, just a few miles from me. My parents live a few miles from us. My brother's building a house just a few miles from us. And I'd love for my children to live here if that's what they choose to do. But I want to make sure that that is an option for them. And I want to make sure that we have good food to eat, that we have good crops. So we have, bread and all these things, corn and wheat and barley and all these things that we need. And that we have good meat to provide us some good protein. And we need rural Oklahoma to do those things.
Sounds like you have a good agenda.
I have a big agenda.
Have you had an opportunity to debate a bill on the floor yet?
I have. I took a couple bills to the floor. Actually, I was lucky enough to get several bills to the floor. A couple of them were easy. I had 2 bills that were we spent a little bit of time debating on, and they actually had to do between rural and urban Oklahoma. And one of them was to do with the COGS and providing REAP, rural economic money, back into rural Oklahoma. And it was quite a battle that I thought I was prepared for. And when we got on the floor, it kind of shocked me a little bit. They had always said, you think there's a fight between Democrats and Republicans. And they said, but when you get up there, you will realize that there's really a fight between urban and rural. And I really didn't understand it until that bill. And truly, there is. There is a mindset of some people who think that if rural Oklahoma cannot survive on its own without any type of subsidies for economic development, for farming, for whatever it is, then that they should just shrivel up and dry up and go away. They don't understand the importance of it. And rural Oklahoma is drying up. We're losing businesses going into the cities. We don't have much of a tax-based structure to work on our infrastructure, to provide, a way of life for people, to provide sewer lines, roads, bridges. We don't have a lot of sales tax to come back in to our town to take care of these things. And so these REAP grants will go back in and provide some of those things. You have to apply for them as a city. And there was a big battle. People did not want to see that money going back into rural Oklahoma. They just think that rural Oklahoma should be able to survive. Each little town should be able to survive on its own. And it's just not possible. It's just not possible. What they forget is, I live here in Bristow. We have a Walmart. We have a couple of grocery stores. But we don't have a place to buy clothes. So I have to go, or shoes, or some of the baby things that I need, or some materials to build the home. A lot of things we have to go into, maybe Tulsa or Oklahoma City to do that. So we spend a lot of our money in those cities also, and sometimes they don't realize that we come to their cities and spend our tax dollars because we don't have the base to have a lot of these. We don't have a Lowe's or a Home Depot right here in Bristow, Oklahoma, and so there's got to be a balance, and people from both sides can't be so stubborn and so narrow-minded that we don't see each other's importance.
When you're discussing this, does it come down to gender?
No. I don't see much of that. I guess growing up in maybe the word would be a man's world. I'm used to that, and I don't see a gender. I guess if I wanted to look for it and look for an issue to be between, for it to be a gender issue, I could probably make it into that if I wanted to. But certainly the bills on the floor or not, they didn't attack me because I was a female. They didn't attack me because they thought I couldn't do it because I was a female. They attacked me because I was rural. And that doesn't matter if you're male or female.
Or young.
Or young or old. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Geography comes into play a little bit now.
It does.
That's interesting. Do you have a role model there?
At the Capitol?
Mm-hmm.
I have lots of role models. The thing about being at the Capitol is everybody should be there representing their own district, and everybody's districts have such a different makeup. But I can tell you the people that I admire the most are the people who truly represent their district, and if it means they have to stand up against their own caucus, against the entire House of Representatives, and be the lone voice of one to speak up for what they feel like their district needs, those are the people I admire the most. And that varies from a group of Republicans to a group of Democrats, to some freshmen who have stood up this year and said, I just can't do this because this is not what my district wants of me. And it takes a lot of nerve and a lot of guts as a freshman to stand up and go against perhaps your party or leadership. And I do admire those people because they're there for the right reason. They're there to do their job. There are some people that I do admire. Representative Lee Denny is an amazing woman who knows what she's there to do. And I admire her a lot because she's very straightforward. She tells you just like it is. And it may hurt your feelings a little bit, but she's going to tell you like it is. And if she tells you she'll be there or she'll do that or she'll carry that bill, that's what she's going to do. And she's going to do it to the very best of her ability. And I admire that about her. There are also a couple of male representatives from rural Oklahoma who have really had to take a stance for rural Oklahoma. Representative DeWitt and Representative Arms. They have really forged or blazed a trail perhaps for rural Oklahoma and for making sure that we have a way of life. They grew up that way. Their children are growing up that way, and they see the importance of it. And so I'm so fortunate to be able to kind of watch what they're doing and watch how their leadership has moved us forward, and to hopefully be able to pick up some of the pieces and to pick up what I need to carry on for them and continue forward. But I look up to so many people up there. Everybody has a little different trait, and there's not one person I want to be like, but everybody has a little different trait, from maybe the way they handle the press to the way that they carry a bill on the floor, to the way they conduct themselves on the floor. Maybe some of the people really have a great relationship with their constituents and know how to handle all the problems, kind of just right, it seems like, and I admire those people. There's a balance between policy and constituent work, and you have to find that happy medium.
What about outside of the legislature then?
I have lots of people outside of the legislature, mostly my family. My grandmother is a huge role model for me. She's very determined, very independent. In fact, we had the discussion last night as we were at the horse sale. Her and my grandfather own the sale barn. and I work in the office on Monday nights, and we sit across from each other and have lots of conversations about lots of things. And she's very honest and open with me, and I'm very honest and open with her. And so we discuss lots of things and how to handle different situations. And I so appreciate the fact that I can go to her and say, here's an issue, here's a problem, now how would you handle it? And sometimes we have to tone it down a little bit because she's pretty bold. And sometimes I have to watch myself because I might be a little bit too in your face or a little bit too bold. But I think that's important to be, not because I'm a female, but because I need to get somewhere in life. And the only way to do that anymore is to be honest and to say this straightforward and to be determined about what you're going to do. And she's given me some of those traits and some of those skills, and I'm so fortunate to have her. My mom also has been just the most support you could ever get. And I know a lot of people say, my mom and my grandma, and I think that it really is true, especially as a woman who hasn't lived a traditional life. As a woman, I haven't just, followed all the steps a girl might follow. I've done a lot of things that isn't traditionally a female field or female related or something that a female does. And they've always been so supportive, and they've never even said, you can't do that because you're a girl. Or, they've always encouraged me to act like a lady. They've always encouraged me to be a classy lady, to be a professional lady. And I thank them for that. I thank them for giving me the tools and the skills to move ahead and never think that somebody owes me something because I'm a girl, or to never think that I can't do it because I'm a girl, or any of those thoughts that might come into your head. It just doesn't play a part that I can or can't do something, that I deserve or don't deserve something because I'm a girl. They just say, if you prepare yourself, you can do it. And my mom is just the most support. And sometimes you just need that little card that sometimes ends up mysteriously in your purse that says, I'm so proud of you, have a great day. Or a phone call that says, you're just a great mom, thanks for what you do. And she's always the support for me that I need.
Got a good support system all the way around.
Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm.
Well, do you have a favorite campaign story?
I have lots of campaign stories. Being in rural Oklahoma, we do a lot of door knocking, not in cities. It's out a lot. And so I ran into lots of dogs. Lots of dog chasing went on in the campaign. And one of them in particular, I have two dog stories. One of them, we were in this very remote part of my district, and my mom was door knocking with me that day, and she was in the car, and because we would have to drive sometimes 2 and 3 miles to get to the next house, so it wasn't a walking deal. So she let me out, and there was lots of leaves on the driveway, on the sidewalk where I was walking. And so I walked up and I knocked on the door, and I could hear somebody inside, and I could hear a dog barking inside, and it sounded like a little dog. And so I knocked on the door some more, and I didn't hear anything, but I could hear the leaves rustling behind me. And then I heard a dog kind of growl, and I thought, that dog inside's getting bigger, I believe. And my mom never moved, never said a word. But then I hear the window roll down the car, and I hear going, Skye, just whispering at me. I thought, this is strange. So I turn around, and there is the biggest German Shepherd I have ever seen, standing just about 4 feet from me. And he wasn't particularly growling at me, but he wanted me to know that he was there. And so my mom backed up and got real close to where I could just jump in the car and go. But there were people home, they never came out, and I think that dog might have eaten me if I'd stayed one more minute. But we were in another neighborhood just not long after that, just a few days after that, and my sister-in-law was with me, and she was driving the car, and my mom and I were door knocking, and these houses were a little bit closer together, so we could kind of walk from house to house, and then she'd pick us up and take us to a new street. And so I'd been knocking this house or this neighborhood, and I knocked a house, and I went to another house and knocked on the door, and nobody was there. But I heard some barking, and I knew it wasn't inside. And we were in a neighborhood, so typically they have to keep them locked up or in a fence. So I wasn't too nervous until my sister-in-law started screaming at me. And I look, and there are 2 Rottweilers chasing me, and I'm running across these people's lawn. I couldn't find any place to go. There was no security, no safety from these dogs. The only thing I knew to do was the next house down. I thought there might be somebody at home, and they had a glass door. So I ran, or the house that I had just knocked at. I kind of thought somebody might have been there, but they just didn't come to the door. So I ran back to that house with these dogs right on my trail, opened the glass door, and there was a solid door there, and crammed myself between the solid door and the glass door. And my sister-in-law, the funny part is she was driving behind me, and we had Fig Newton cookies or whatever, for breakfast that morning on the campaign trail. She's whistling at the dogs, throwing them Fig Newtons, and they turn around and start eating these cookies and leave me alone. And so we laughed that she saved me with the Fig Newton. And so they're all the time, cracking jokes, or occasionally a mysterious package of Fig Newtons will end up in my briefcase, or, they'll show up and laugh about them. But the dogs in my district are very vicious, and they will, they will get you. But my favorite things about the campaign were when people would invite me into their home and be very honest and open with me about their issues. And we would sit down maybe at the table and have a cup of coffee or a glass of water. And or they, a lot of people would offer me water or a drink, because we were knocking, in the summertime, it was very, very hot. And then in the winter and it was cold, so they'd offer me a cup of coffee. My district is very, very kind. But I enjoyed the times of just being able to sit at their table and visit with them on their front porch and talk about real issues that were really important to them, not political, not just the political agendas, not things that we just talk about that are big and important to the general public, but things that really made a difference in their lives, things that they might need some help with that I could really, truly help with them. It may not be a bill. It may be a phone call. It may be giving them some direction on where they might need to go to get some assistance. And that's what I enjoyed the most. That's when I started doing that, that's when I really felt connected and a calling to do what I do.
Did you notice if there were many grandparents raising grandchildren then?
That was a huge thing in my district. We had lots of conversations, mostly on the phone. I remember one particular day I had three calls when I would call people, and that's what they wanted to talk about was grandparents' rights. And they were raising grandchildren, and I have a wonderful family right here in Bristow that are raising their great-grandchildren, 4 of them, in fact. And so that is what is happening in Oklahoma. And we're just fortunate that we have these grandparents who want to step up and do it. But there's a gap, there's a generational gap, or something wrong with a generation of parents that we need to figure out, well, what are we going to do with these kids? How are we going to make these kids' lives okay and functional, and know that a family unit is a good thing, and a mom and dad is what we need to get back to. But how fantastic is it that we have good grandparents in Oklahoma who are willing to raise their grandchildren or their great-grandchildren?
As you look forward, do you have something new on the horizon you want to accomplish this next year?
I do have a few bills that I'm working on. My goal for this year is to be productive, to be a lot more productive. I feel like I did some good things last year, but I'm not completely satisfied. My goals that I've set for myself this year are to pick the 8 very best bills that I possibly can and to get them to the floor and to get them passed. If I want to take good legislation that's going to make a difference in Oklahoma. I don't want to just carry a bill anymore because I'm a freshman and somebody needs to get it through. Mm-hmm. I want to carry some meaningful legislation that is going to do something. We have enough rules and enough laws on the books. We don't need any more of those. We need something that's important. And my goal is to be a hub, my office, to be a hub of information for my district. That's what they sent me there to do, was to serve them. And when they call, I want to be able to say, this is where you need to go. This is who I can call for you. This is who you need to call. Here's our plan of how we're going to fix your problem. That's my goal. I feel like last year was a learning process. I feel like I kind of walked through it blindly some of the time. There was some great leadership. In fact, the leadership in the House was so good to the freshmen this year. I could walk into the speaker's office at any point that I wanted to. And I think you look back in history and you ask a freshman if they could go into the speaker's office, I think they would laugh at you. How fantastic is that he was so open, all of leadership, from the floor leader to the speaker pro tem to, the majority whip. Anybody they were so open and open to our ideas and our thoughts and our suggestions, and really listened to us. And so what an amazing year I had last year. They showed me, they took the time to teach me the right way to do things, and they would help me when I get myself in a jam, because sometimes that happens. Sometimes you think you're headed down the right trail and you get off a little bit, and you've maybe messed a thing or two up. And they were so wonderful to help me get that back on track. But now I know a little more how to do it. I don't have it all figured out. I think it might take me full 12 years to get that done, but at least I can be a better servant of my district, because now I know a little more. I'll be a little more effective, a little more productive, and that's what I intend to do.
You have the same assistant as you did last year?
I do. I have a fantastic assistant who we work well together. She has some children. She has a daughter, and we complement each other. She compliments me. She's a little bit softer, and she can deal with sometimes some of the situations that I'm a little too gruff on or a little too abrupt on. But she keeps me organized, and I'm real fortunate to have her. And she takes care of two of us. So it's also been I haven't been able to be completely dependent on her, although I feel like sometimes she's she's my right leg. Sometimes I feel like she's what holds me up. But I've had to realize that she has to split her time between myself and another legislator. But she's been really good to me, and I'm fortunate to have her, and I hope to have her for lots more years. I hope somebody doesn't steal her from me.
I want to go back to your campaign. Did you have a spiel, the same spiel that you would say every time I find out? Can you repeat it if you did?
Yeah, I really didn't. I would typically just knock on the door and say, I'm Skye McNiel and I'm running for the House of Representatives. And after they would look at me and look at my picture and go, is that really you? Or you're so young, or, they would always have some type of reaction. And I would just say, I would really like your vote and your support. And I'd like to visit with you if you have any ideas about what you might want me to take to the Capitol. And so we would visit a lot of times, and sometimes they would say no. And sometimes they'd have an hour and a half long spiel of stuff they would want to tell me. And most of the time they would just take their brochure and I'd just say thank you and tell them to please call me if they ever had anyone to visit. And sometimes they did. And it was fantastic. They'd call and go, you were by my door a couple of days ago, and I just realized that there was something I did want to talk to you about. And but no, I tried to mix it up because I didn't want it to sound rehearsed. I wanted every door knock to feel special. I wanted them to feel like I came that day to see them. And granted, they know I'm going to go see 500 other people probably, but I wanted it to feel not rehearsed, not like I'm so tired of doing this, I can't knock on their door, but like it was something I looked forward to doing, was to knock on their door, and I was there to listen to them for that moment in time. They were the most important person, and that's what I wanted to feel like.
How many doors would you typically knock in a day then?
Well, my average isn't so good because we would have to drive a long ways between them. Depending on if we were in a real remote part, in a real rural part, or a more populated part, it would vary. I would say anywhere, the group as a total, because I typically knocked in groups. I had some great people who went with me. We would get anywhere from 100 to 200 homes. Yeah. But I took a group. But there were some days that my mom and I went, we might only get 30 houses. That might be a full day, but you average those out. Most times especially towards the end, we would take a group of 6 to 8 people out, and we would knock houses for several hours. And, you take 10 people, they knock 10 houses, you've already got 100. So it sounds like a lot of houses, but it's really not. But me knocking personally, I'm very slow, especially when you're the candidate. They want to talk to you. So if you would ask me, my average on a day would be a lot smaller number. I would say I would get, somewhere between 25 and 60. I don't know what the number would be because I'm very slow. I mean, the volunteers would often laugh because we might be in a low housing condition. I'd be 4 houses down and they'd be all the way around the block, But I felt like it was important that I make those people feel important. In my campaign, the volunteers a lot of times would say, well, Skye's right here. Would you like to go would you like me to go get her? And so they would come and pull me off of the doorstep, and I would go to their house and we would switch. And so I would knock their route for a while and they would take mine because somebody wanted to speak, talk to me directly. And I think that was important. Instead of them going, well, I think she might, be for this, they could just go get me because we were always knocking in the same area together. So our average varied. We'd get anywhere from 25 to 150 houses a day.
Well, did you approach it with a plan on which neighborhoods you were going to do first then?
We did. We had a walking list. And sometimes the walking list worked, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes we would just throw them back in the car and say, we're just going to knock the neighborhood. It's quicker. This is what we need to do. But in the rural, remote part of my district, we definitely went by the walking list. And a lot of times we would send, a group of 2 people. We try to send 3 groups of 2 out to go knock rural Oklahoma. My goal was to get entirely through the district one time. I made it about a time and 3/4. I didn't quite get through it 2 times, almost. There were some rural parts that I did not get back to twice. But we did a good job, compared to, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how this door knocking thing worked. And I can remember the first day my mom and I went. Neither one of us had ever done this. And I felt like a fruit salesman. I felt like one of those people that knock on your door and want to sell you some apples or oranges. And so I would go knock on the door, and I would just sit in there and pray that they wouldn't come to that door because I didn't know what I was going to say. I was young, and I knew what I wanted to do, but I couldn't articulate that to the people. And a lot of times I had to say the right words because I was so young. They would look at me and think, girl, you're not even out of high school. You can't go to the Capitol. I got a lot of times, are you old enough to vote? And so I was very nervous that people would judge me before they ever even heard me talk or got to know me. But once I got over that fear, then it was okay. But that first day of knocking, I think we maybe only knocked 5 houses because we'd pull up there and Mom would be like, okay, you need to go. And I just would sit there. I was so nervous to go. By the end, knocking was no problem. I'd just jump out, and the quicker we get it done, the more houses we could get to. But it took me a long time. I don't want to bother people. If they need me, I want them to know I'm here. But I don't want to bother them. I don't want to bother their family time. A lot of people will knock through, till late night. And I just refuse to do that. I won't bother people. When I come home, it's important that I spend some time with my children. And I feel like it's important for everybody, not just me. Every family needs to spend time with their children. And I don't want to bother that time. If a mom's cooking dinner, she doesn't want to talk to me. And if a dad just got off work and is trying to play with his kids, he doesn't want to mess with me, And so I really respect people's times. And so I had to utilize, from about 10 in the morning until 5:30, which was 6, which was really pushing it for me because people were getting off work. I had to utilize that time to the best of my ability and to knock as fast as I could because I didn't want to start too early because there were some people who maybe worked late nights and didn't get up early or, whatever. I really respected people's time. And sometimes I got in trouble for that. Sometimes, people, my consultant would call and go, you need to be knocking more doors. You didn't have a good week. Last week you didn't knock very many, or it's 10 o'clock. Why aren't you already on the doorstep? Or it's 7:30. Why are you not out? And he didn't understand my view on that. But I think it worked out. I mean, I don't think he was realizing how many doors we were getting to a day and how fast we were moving and how many people I had helping me get that done. It wasn't just me out every day knocking from just 10 to 5. It was a group. But I think it's important that as candidates that we respect our voters' time and that we respect their time with their families. We can't just assume that they want to have 8 robocalls a night and they want to hear our spill. And it has to be heartfelt. And if we're doing it just as a robot would do it, then it's not heartfelt anymore. It loses some of its usefulness, and then I'm wasting my time and their time.
Did you have a slogan?
No, we didn't.
Colors?
Colors, we did have colors, and it was really kind of funny picking colors. My campaign consultant, who has worked with lots of rural people, he worked with Speaker Todd Hyatt, who held the seat before I did. And Todd was also another role model I had growing up. He let me page for him, and so I got to see him. He worked at our sale barn. He was an auctioneer at my grandparents' sale barn, and so I got to know him through that. And he was really kind to us, and would visit with us about issues coming up. And he was really good to me. And really, he's the one who came to me at 7 months pregnant and said, "Do you want to run?" And when I said yes, and he went back to his consultant and said, "Okay, Skye wants to run. Do you want to be her consultant?" And he said, "Well, I'll meet her first." The first time he met me, I was 8 or almost 9 months pregnant. We had been out all day at a rope-in with my husband and my oldest daughter. I was dirty and huge pregnant, and we came walking in, and you could just see the look on his face, and he just was like, "I can't take this. I can't make a legislator out of this." You could just see that look on his face. And so we met that night, and it went okay. And then we met a couple of days later, and he said, "Skye, you giggle too much. You've got to stop giggling." And I thought, well, that's just me. I'm just a fairly happy person. So I've had to watch my giggling. And he said, "Don't giggle like a schoolgirl." So I don't know if I did or didn't, but I don't think I do now. But we laugh now because he will tell me, he said, "Skye, they had to convince me that you could do this. Todd Hyatt had to convince me that you could pull this off. If anybody in your district could pull this off, you could do it because you had such a support team, such a family, such a good network of people that you could get this done as a team, in a group." And he said, there were lots of times I would call him and just say, "Todd, I don't think this is going to work. My poll numbers were apparently very low." I think he was very nervous, and Todd had a lot of I don't know what the word would be. He just really saw something in me that I think some other people didn't see. Sometimes he saw the fire burning. He knew what that looked like in a person because he went through the same obstacles I was going through. And he really had some faith in me that other people, when they wanted to bail, he encouraged them to stay hooked with me, and I was going to carry out my part just as I'd said I was going to do. And if they would just hang with me and if they would do their part as a team, we would get there. But I needed them to guide me, and they needed me because I was their only candidate in Creek County. Mm-hmm. And so we made a team, but I have to really commend him and thank him because there were a lot of times I think he might have been, it would have been easier for him just to say, you know what, this isn't going to work. She's young, she's got a young family, we have a lot of obstacles up against us. But he stuck right beside me and let me, had enough faith in me that I could carry the torch on that he had started. And there's some big shoes to fill. And I'm very honored to be able to try to fill those shoes. But my colors, kind of get off from one thing to another, okay. But my colors, still wasn't really 100% sure on taking me. And he called me and said, well, we need to start getting some things lined up. What do you want to do for your colors? And I said, well, I'm an OSU girl, so we have to have orange. And I think navy. He said, what? I said, orange and navy. He said, okay, we need red, white, blue. Do you have any of those colors in there? I said, well, navy would be a offshoot of blue, wouldn't it? And he said, Skye, we just can't do orange and navy. I said, you put it together and then we'll discuss it. So he put it together and he said, I think this just might work. So it did work. We have orange shirts with navy writing, but it was really kind of funny. He just said, I don't think orange and navy will work. And we had lots of those discussions. I would want something. He'd go, Skye, I just don't think it'll work. And I said, let's just try. Let's just try one time. I like to think out of the box. I like to do things a little different. That's just how I know to do things. And so a lot of times he would kind of let me get out of the box a little bit from the typical candidate mold. And it works for me. That's what I think is important. We all have to be individual, starting from our colors to our platforms to whatever. We have to be individual, or we just get lumped into the old politician group, and that's where I don't want to be there.
Did you take anything from home to your office?
I took lots of stuff from my home, but the most important thing was I took 3 pictures off of my wall. My oldest daughter, who will be 5 soon, had made some pictures, and I framed them in these glass frames, and I had them hanging up on our wall. She had finger painted them when she was about 3 years old, and I took them and put them on my wall, and I put them right where I can see them. They're eye level, right above my phone, and that's what I see every single day while I'm sitting at my desk talking on the phone. I took those. I took a wedding picture with my husband in it because he is just a fantastic support for me and a fantastic father and a wonderful husband. But I took lots of things. But when I was unpacking my pictures, I found this little picture of my daughter's little Shetland pony. And I thought, how odd is this? And my mom had helped me pack my stuff. In fact, was helping me unpack my stuff. I said, what is this, Mom? And she said, well, I just want you to remember that if you ever get on your high horse, to remember us folks down here on our Shetland ponies, and you need to join us. And so I have that hanging in my office, and sometimes people come in and go, why do you have that pony in your office? And I say, well, that, not telling the story, but that's what keeps me grounded. And I remember that I'm not really anybody very special. I'm just a person that some people had some faith in, and I need to go up there and remember why I'm up there, and I need to serve them, and I need to remember to stay down on my little Shetland pony and not get up on my high horse. So I did take that with me, and I took some quotes and some things with me, and just some things from home. I didn't want it to feel like a stuffy old office. I wanted it to feel homey. I wanted people to come in and be able to really be honest with me and open with me, because that's how I'm going to be with them when we're talking, whether it's talking about policy or just visiting about family and friends. I wanted it to be comfortable. And so I took a lot of things. My office is very full of stuff, and that's how I like it.
Have constituents actually come to visit you?
They have, and it's just amazing to watch them, come in on the floor. And I hope that I make them proud when they see me working on the floor, and that's my job. I never know when one's going to come and be up in the gallery watching, and so I always try to conduct myself very professional on the floor so that they would be proud of who they helped send up there. And so I'm very mindful of what they think about what I'm doing up there. I don't want to disappoint them, and I don't want to embarrass them, but I have, and it's so wonderful to have them come from home and see where they have helped us get, and to know that they took enough time to drive. If you drive properly, it might take you an hour and a half to get there. So, yeah, or sometimes 50 minutes or an hour, depending on how late you are. But to know that they took time out of their day to come up there and to look me in the eye and say, this is an important issue to me, and I need to know where you stand. That's a very, it's just a great feeling to know that they take that much consideration about their government and about what goes on up there, to come up there and visit it and to see it for themselves, and to just not assume that we're all bad people or it's not going to happen the way they want it to, so they're not going to take the time to visit with me. They actually drive up there. It's wonderful. I'm so, when I see anybody from home or from my district, I'm so tickled to have them there, and I just want to take them to my office and visit and have them on the floor and to introduce them and let people know that Creek County is a force to be reckoned with.
So they do introduce them from the floor then?
We do, yes. We're able, if the floor leader will allow us, and he was so generous to us, we're able to introduce most anybody.
There was something I was wanting to ask. You were Vice Chair of Natural Resources.
I'm the Vice Chair of the Natural Resources Full Committee. I'm also on the Social Services Subcommittee. I'm also on the Aerospace and Technology Subcommittee, the Energy Subcommittee, and I am an Assistant Majority Whip.
And what does that entail?
It's really, I was on a family vacation when the Majority Whip called me and said, would you like to be an Assistant Majority Whip? And I said, sure. I don't know what it is, but sign me up. I'm there. And so when I got the phone, I told my husband, I said, I'm an Assistant Majority Whip, and I have no idea what I really do. I said, but I think it's something important, because I remember when I was an intern at the Capitol, I would see majority or minority whip on doors. And I said, so it's got to be something. And I said, so I just said I would do it. And I said, I better figure out what I'm doing. And so, but what it is I have 3 people within the caucus that I work directly with. And I can go to them and talk to them about bills coming up, if they have some problems, if they have some issues, if they have if they foresee a problem coming up with a certain bill, they can come to me and say, Skye, this is where I stand, or, I have this issue, this particular issue going on, or I don't like this bill coming up and we need to discuss about it in caucus. Then I can go to leadership and say, I have one of my members on my team who has some problems and some issues, and we need to talk about this. And so I'm kind of a go-between between the caucus and leadership. And there are 2 levels of whips ahead of me. There's a deputy whip and then the majority whip, and then leadership. And so we have a meeting once a week where we all go in there and visit, and we really try to solve problems. And it's a way for everybody to be in communication, because sometimes, especially as a freshman, it's intimidating to go up to leadership and say, listen, I have a problem with your bill, and I don't think it's very good. But so this is a way for them to get to make sure that they're doing their very best, and they're letting people know when they have issues without going directly to the speaker or without going directly to the floor leader and saying, I just don't like what you got going on, And so it just makes things a little more open. And we don't have to say, it was Representative so-and-so. We just say a member of my group has some issues. And so they feel a little more comfortable with it. And it's also a great way for me to bond with 3 other members. Mm-hmm. And I've gotten to know some really great members, and Representative Enns from Enid, who is just a fantastic man. He's in a wheelchair, and I just admire him for his determination so much. And I was lucky enough to be his whip, and so I would get to go visit with him. And he just has an amazing outlook on life, and he's so intelligent. And so I might not have gotten to have that relationship with him had I not been his whip. And he is an absolute blessing to know, anybody who knows him. And then Representative Earl Sears, who was a principal and has been in the school systems and knows all about that. And so I have a very comfortable relationship with him, that sometimes if I don't understand a school issue, being his whip, I'll go to him and saying, give me some guidance, give me some insight on this particular issue. Is it good for schools? Is it bad for schools? And we have a great relationship. In fact, Earl called me in the middle of interim just to say, Skye, just thinking about you, and he's a fantastic guy, and I might not have had that opportunity to get to really know him had I not been in this position. And then I also was the whip for Representative Trevor Worthen, who's out of Oklahoma City, who is a more senior member than I am. And so that's been an opportunity for me to get to make friends with somebody who's been there, who's done that, who's been through a couple of sessions. And so I've been able to learn from him, kind of some of the moves you have to make to get where you're going. And so I have a great group of people that I get to work with by being a whip, and I started out not even know what a whip did. So I'm very happy to be one now that I know what it is.
Well, did any of the senior women take you under?
The senior women in our caucus are fantastic. You just don't get better. I mean, they all did. When I remember walking into that first meeting, like 4 days after elected, I was so nervous. I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, it was a whirlwind. And they all were so kind. I mean, sometimes women can be a little catty, and sometimes women can be, they don't want another woman. Sometimes they're harder on their own gender than men are. And that's what I was ready for. I was ready to walk in and have to battle the women and not particularly battle the men. And they were fantastic. I mean, they want to see everyone succeed, whether you're a man or a woman, but they're certainly not going to try to hold me back because I'm a female. They would often come up and Sally Kern perhaps might have been the best. She would often come up and say, Skye, how are your kids? Did you have a long drive this morning? She was always worried about me driving home every single day. Skye, did you make it okay? Now you need to drive home. You need to be careful, and you need to get out of here as soon as session's over. And she was always concerned about me. And Representative Denny and Representative Billy, I perhaps have grown the closest to. Representative Billy is closest to my age and has several children, young children that are close to my kids' age. And Representative Denny, oddly enough, is about the age of my mother. And we were laughing one time. We were at a convention, and I had just got done speaking. And a gentleman walked up who knew Representative Denny and said, well, Lee, I had walked over at this point, had been speaking throughout a breakfast, and walked over to Lee because her and I had ridden together to the meeting. And he said, well, Lee, is this your daughter? And I laughed. I wanted to cry because I thought clearly I didn't make any kind of a statement because I've been speaking for 30 minutes up here. And I said, yes, sir. And she said, no, this isn't my daughter. This is Representative McNiel. But so since then, I've teased her about being my mom. And we were driving one day, and she said, Skye, she said, I bet I'm, near your mom's age. And I said, well, how old are you? And she told me, and I said, you are near. You're 4 years older. And so that's kind of been our joke. So for Mother's Day, I got her a little gift and took it in there and put it on her desk. But she perhaps has given me the most guidance. And she reminds me of my mom, not in a bad way, but in a good way. I can go to her and just be Skye. I can tell her honestly, openly how I feel about something. And it may be the wrong thought or the wrong viewpoint. And she'll tell me, not in a motherly way, in a friendly way. She's a very good friend of mine. And we just have a great connection. And I'm so blessed to have her. And Representative Billy is right down the hall from me. And so a lot of times I'll just go in her office and be able to vent a little bit about an issue, or we can talk about kids, or our daughters are close to the same age. And so we visit, and it's just refreshing to see another mom go through the same things that I'm going through. Not that it's hard, or not that it's, this is obviously what we want to do, but sometimes there are trials and tribulations with having a young family. We might miss a ball game, or miss a t-ball game or a practice, which both of us tried so hard to make them home to all of them. But sometimes it made it comforting just to go in and say, I didn't get to come home to Pake's ball game tonight. And, we just visit about that. And she's a very spiritual Christian woman, and it's good to go in sometimes and just get renewed with her spirit and her faith. And we'll just pray sometimes that we'll get through the day, and that our kids will be proud of who we are, and that they're learning something from their mamas. And so it's just a great relationship. Fantastic women. There's some fantastic Democrat women that when my great grandmother passed away, who clearly was a very important part of my life, when she passed away, I get this wonderful card from Representative McDaniel, Jeannie McDaniel, in the mail. And it was just so thoughtful of her to take the time and give and send this card and write such nice, kind words. And when we get on that floor, we typically are a unit. There's some dividing lines, and like we've talked about, some of them have been rural, some of them have been urban, some have been Democrat, some have been Republican, some have been just different districts, just different makeup of districts or points of view. But as a whole, when we walk off the floor, we are mostly friends, the majority of us. Depending on either side of the aisle you sit on, you still have made lots of friends on the other side of the aisle. And I think that's important for people to know. And I encourage people to come to the Capitol and watch, the makeup of the floor, and watch people go across each side of the aisle and to visit and to tease and to the camaraderie that goes on. And you need that. Some people think that, they're laughing down there on the floor, or they're cutting up. But we need that. We need that on the floor to remember that we're real people that have have a very important job, like a lot of other people have lots of important jobs, whether you're a banker or a school administrator or a teacher or a stay-at-home mom who's raising her children. Regardless of what you are, your job is important to somebody in some aspect. And we just have to remember that we have to have those friendships. You've got to have people there to vote on your bills. You've got to have an open communication line with so many people to tell them why your bill's good, and to have to be able to have some open communication on why your bill may not be good, or and you've got to have that there. If you're all closed off and thinking you have the perfect idea, you have the perfect bill, and you don't need to discuss this with anybody, they should clearly just see how good you are and how good your ideas are. You're wrong. You need to have those friendships on both sides of the aisle, because you need both sides of the aisle to get stuff through.
Switch teams. Tanya McNiel, I interviewed her a couple weeks ago. She's a neat lady.
She is very neat. She gave a speech at Woman of the Year, Professional Women's Association Woman of the Year banquet, and just did a fantastic job. And I didn't know her then, and because I was still a candidate, and so I was so excited to get to meet her.
This is take 2. When we were coming up with questions to ask, someone wanted to make sure that we ask for advice for women that were thinking about politics.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any to offer?
I was talking to a group of women called the Professional Women. It's a group in Bristow, which they were having their district meeting. And it's a group of women who worked outside of the home, and they just come together. A lot of them may be retired now, but they come together and just visit, and it's just a way for them to outreach and to make some friendships. And I was lucky enough to get to go speak to them about a week ago. And we talked a lot about that. And I made the assumption that there are 2 types of women. They're the first type of woman, and I think we all fit in one of these categories, and maybe both at different points in our life. One of them is, I am a woman and I deserve certain things because I am a woman. The other one is, and in that type A, you might think, people need to be nicer to me because I'm a woman. People need to give me a little bit of an advantage because I'm a woman. I think there's a certain group of women who fit in that category, who are brought up to think that they aren't as smart sometimes, or they can't do it because they started out behind. Then I think that there's the type B woman who say, I'm going to do it because, not because I'm a woman, but because I'm skilled, I'm knowledgeable, I prepared myself, and I'm going to do whatever my goal is. And I think that's where we need to move women into thinking. I think we need to teach our daughters not to think, I deserve something because I'm a woman. I think they need to say, I'm going to get something because I've prepared myself, because I'm smart enough, because I'm strong enough, because I'm capable of doing whatever it is they want to do. For me, it was politics. I wanted to go into politics. I never expected anybody to vote for me because I was a woman. I never expect I don't expect anybody to vote on my bill because I'm a woman. I don't expect them to be any nicer to me or to be any ruder to me. I don't expect anything because I'm a woman. I expect them to view me as a legislator. And if I'm capable, and if I am knowledgeable enough, and if I can articulate my message to them, and they think it's a good idea, I expect them to vote for it. And if they think it's a bad idea, then I expect them to come to me and say, just a bad idea, I'm not voting for you this time. But I think we have to be in the mindset that we're just as smart as any other man or any other woman. I'm not going to let anybody stand in my way, whether it be a man or a woman. I don't care what they are. And I was taught that. I was taught that if I act like a lady doesn't mean that a man is, I have to pretend like a man is smarter than me, or that I'm smarter than that man. There are lots of men smarter than me. There are lots of women smarter than me. That's just how it goes. But as a woman, I have to be professional. I have to be, I try to conduct myself that way. I try to conduct myself that would make my parents and my grandparents and my daughters proud that I'm doing, whatever it is I'm doing. And I think that as a lady, I also have to be nice when a man is being nice to me back, when he opens a door for a group of women coming through. I oftentimes will see a woman, well, I don't need you to open the door. Well, he was being nice. Chivalry is not dead. And I think that as a lady, that we accept that and we say, thank you, sir. And when they pull out a chair for us as a meeting, I don't take that as they don't think I can pull out my own chair. I take that as they were raised right, and their parents taught them the way to treat a lady. And as as a lady, I try to give them the respect and tell them thank you, and show them that I was raised right. And I know that they were just showing me a kind gesture. And I think that we have to get back to that. Women and men are equal in their career, I think. I think we can do anything a man can do. And I think if you're still in that mindset that you either deserve something or you can't do something because you're a woman, you're only holding yourself back. And that's why I do what I do. I want my children, I have 2 girls. I want them to know that whatever they want to do, if they want to be a stay-at-home mom, I want them to be the very best stay-at-home mom they can be. And if they want to be a teacher or own a flower shop, which is what I did for a while, I want them just to know that they can be the very best at that. And they don't need to take any lip off of anybody, man or woman, and listen to people telling them they can't do it, because they're strong, they're independent, they're very capable. Little girls right now, and hopefully, women. And I think it's so important. So many times I hear women talk about, how men don't treat them right. Well, if you demand that respect, if you demand that you be treated the same, which is what I hope I do, I don't always succeed in everything I want to do. But I hope that when I walk in, I conduct myself in a way that men know I'm there for business, and that women know I'm there for business. I'm not there to play any games. I'm not there to play girl games or to conduct myself in a way that might think that somebody might get the wrong impression about me. I'm there to do my job. I happen to be a girl. I happen to sometimes wear, a skirt and high heels. I like heels, and I joke with people that I'm going to do what I set out to do, and I may do it wearing red heels. And I think that that's just who I am. I want to be somebody that blazes a trail for somebody else, and hopefully I can do it with some class and some style, and people will respect that with me and go, you know what, she did something good, and she didn't sit back and let people do it for her, or she didn't expect that people should do it for her because she was a woman, and she just did something good, whether she was a man or a woman. She did something good, and that's what I want. And I think if people want to get into politics, women, don't think, can I do it because I'm a woman? Think, can I do it because have I prepared myself for it? Do I have the knowledge to do it? Don't say, will people vote or not vote for me because I'm a female. I did lots of those interviews. Lots of interviews after I was elected. Well, what are you going to do now that you're a mom? Well, I was a mom before. I've been a mom. This isn't new. And, this is something I've prepared for. I've prepared myself to be a working mother. I've prepared my children that mom's going to go work, and here's what mom's doing. Here's why I go to work, girls. This is what I do. I call home and visit with them after school. How'd your day go, baby? What'd you do today? And you have dance, this afternoon. We'll talk about it. You've got dance this afternoon. Mama's going to pick you up. Daddy will be there. And I'll be home to cook you dinner. Or you know what? I'm not going to be home till after you're in bed, but I'll see you in the morning. I'll wake you up and let you know that I'm here. And my daughter, she had a saying. I would always tell her, Ike, I love you all the way to the moon and back. And that was on a movie sometime back in college. And she would say, Mama, I love you all the way to the Capitol and back. And I don't know where she came up with that. She thinks the Capitol is farther than the moon. So she teases that she loves me more. But my girls know what I'm doing. I think they, to the best of their knowledge at age 4 and 2, understand that why Mama does what I do, And they hopefully are learning something. And my daughter is she'll just go out and kind of talk to anybody. My oldest one and my youngest one, she's going to be the same way, I think. But we were at Halloween, and the police chief was standing over there. And in our Halloween, you go through Main Street, and you kind of line up like a herd of cattle. You just kind of line up and go down the street, and the business owners will give you some candy. And so I was being mom that night. And everybody said, well, you should have had a campaign. You should have been passing out candy for a campaign. I said, sometimes I just got to be mom. I just got to be Paige and Jameson's mama. And that's what I've got to do. And tonight is one of those nights. I'm proud to see my little girls dressed up as a little clown and superwoman. And I'm here to do that. But on the trail, the police chief was blocking one of the streets. And so I just kind of stepped over a little bit to shake his hand and told him he was glad to see him. And thanks for, keeping our kids safe on Halloween. And I didn't know it, but my daughter, my oldest one was behind me. My youngest one was in front of me. And my oldest one just walked by and reached up and shook his hand just like I did and said, thank you, sir, and kept going. And so everybody behind me laughed, and I turned around, and then they told me what she had done. But I hope she learns how to conduct herself, and I think that just shows that maybe, just maybe, I'm on the right path. And there are lots of times that I fail, and I think, oh, Lord, help me. I want to raise these girls right. And but I think if you're a woman, And if you want to run, just prepare yourself. Just prepare yourself to be knowledgeable, to be open, to be articulate, to be ready to run your tail off and work hard. And don't ever think twice about being a girl. It doesn't make any difference.
5 generations in your family. That's saying a lot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Was politics ever discussed at the dinner table?
No. When I decided to run, we had quite a discussion right outside my house with my mom and dad and my husband and my oldest daughter. And we visited about, and they said, they don't know anything about government or politics. And they, for some part had the same perception that a lot of people do, that, politicians are bad and they're all bad people and they're there not for the right reasons. But once they took a hold of the idea and they had the same vision I did, we do talk about it now. But when I was growing up, heavens no. We didn't know anything about politics. We were, we knew who the governor was and we knew who our state representative was, and we could call our state representative because we knew him, but we didn't know the intricate parts, and we didn't realize how much government affected our everyday life. And it's amazing to me now that we didn't. Not that we didn't know, but we didn't understand our role in it. We didn't understand our role in government as citizens, what our role was to be in touch with our representative and our senator and our congressmen and women, and let them know where we stood on issues and how just everyday decisions, somehow government plays a part in that. So now we're more aware of that. And we talk about it around the dinner table with my kids sometimes, but I want them to know there's lots more out there. I don't want them to think politics because mama did it, they have to do it. But we talk about it, and I let them know that they have to make a difference, and it may be politics, it may not. But it is interesting that conversations have certainly changed since I've been in government, since pre-government. Mm-hmm. And they still sometimes have bad view of politicians, and I get harassed a whole lot. But it's good harassment. And it's eye-opening for them and for me, because we talk about real issues. They don't pat me on the back and say, oh, we're so proud of what you're doing, Skye. Anything you think is just perfect. We have real discussions about real issues. And within my family, it's such a large family, we have differing issues on a lot of big topics. But we're able to sit down and talk those out and discuss. And I don't always agree with them, and they don't always agree with me. But at the end of the day, we've talked it out. We're still a family, and we go on about our day.
Well, that's all of my questions. Do you have anything that I haven't covered that you want to make sure we get down?
I don't think so. I'm honored. I don't do many interviews on women. I talked about that a little bit. The last interview I did on being a woman, the lady kind of wanted to give me a hard time about being a working mom. And I said, ma'am, have you called any of my colleagues that are freshman men who have young families? Because there's 3 men I can think of off the top of my head that have children the same age as my girls, or at least as my youngest daughter. She said, no, I don't think I have. I said, I tell you what, you call and get an interview from a man, and you ask them how they're going to be a working dad and how they're going to take care of their families and while being in the city, and how they're going to be a legislator and juggle that with being a dad. And then you call me back and I'll give you an interview. And the phone was pretty silent and the conversation was over. And I haven't heard from her since, and I don't think I've done any more of those types of interviews. I don't particularly go to women's meetings or clubs, because I don't think that that's the best use of my time. I think the best use of my time is to go to groups where we're going to accomplish something as a whole. We're not going to say, we're a different group apart from someone else. Not that those groups are bad. It's just not the thing that I'm into mostly. And so I had some reservations about doing this particular interview. But the more I thought about it, I think it's important that young girls do know why maybe I don't do some of those interviews, and why I think I don't give a second glance or second thought to being a female. I know I'm a female, and it's apparent, and I love being a female. I love being a mom. It's the most wonderful thing in the whole wide world is to be a mom. And I want young women to know that they can do absolutely anything in this whole wide world they want to do. But don't ever think somebody owes it to you because you're a girl, and don't ever think you can't do it because you're a girl. It's just not an issue anymore.
It's amazing as I've talked with women from the 60s forward how it has progressed to this, and it's great to hear someone younger than me say this. So there's hope for the future.
There is. Thank you for doing it. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks so much.